Welcome to Communicate with Power, episode number 8, we believe. I'm Barry McLaughlin, waving to you just there. It's my partner, Laura Peck, and we're happy to join with you. We hope you're happy to join with us on this podcast. We're getting a lot of great reactions. I appreciate that. And we welcome your questions, by the way. So you'll see opportunities there to, of course, we'd like you to follow this and subscribe to this podcast because that really makes a difference for your engagement. And we'd love to have you along as regulars. Well, Laura, I've decided because of the nature of this, you know, October, mid-October, a little cool but still sunny, it's still a lovely fall day, to do a grab bag of what's happened in the past week. So I'm going to let's call it sad, bad, and glad. The three categories of what's at least struck us over the past week. They may not be number one on the hit parade of the world, but they're sort of the three categories of sad, bad, and glad that have made an impact on us this week. And Laura, let's start with you. We're going to start with the sad stuff. So, what was sad this week that you'd like to make some comment on?
Well, I was very sad to know that Diane Keaton had passed away. And this morning and every day this week, I've sort of been wearing this hat in her honor because that's the kind of thing she would
Yeah,
do,
true.
as well as people were sweet enough to say, "Hey, you look like Diane Keaton,"
There's just a
with
lot of truth to
the
that.
yeah, and the big smile, which is my
Yeah,
natural way
yeah,
of being. But yeah, I think that so many of us, as we went through single days into career world, and Annie Hall, then on to baby boom, which is really
that was one of
significant.
our favorites. Yeah,
Yeah, showing how
yeah,
difficult it was for women to
yeah.
have a career and to have children, and it is, but we made it through all the way into Something's Gotta Give, which is
Love that.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is about in a later stage of your life to find true love. And it was very romantic and beautifully
yeah,
shot and all that, but her body of work is huge,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that
And
has to be honored.
we always felt warm and cuddly over the Godfathers, especially one and two. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, she was an amazing actress. There's no
That was
question
her
about it.
range.
That
That's
was her range.
She could do a
Yeah.
dramatic role.
Mm,
And I remember seeing that movie and thinking, how can you make a mobster
yeah,
if you are clearly this waspish woman? But
yeah.
she made him be the man that he was. But it was, you could understand how you could get caught up in all of that.
Well, she fought him. You know, she began to realize what she was dealing with, and I think the character, as written by Francis Coppola, was really amazing. I think it really did capture the torn, uh, if you like, the torn values of a mom, a wife who was fighting for her kids, fighting for what was right, but in a world that was really not of her making, but now it was part of her doing. So it was quite something for sure. Yeah, so that was very sad. There's no question about it. And while we're talking about sad, the other one that is really a celebration of life, I would like to look at it that way, and that is, of course, the late John Candy and the documentary that Colin Hanks wrote, produced by Ryan Reynolds. Uh, John Candy, I Like Me, which was a very famous line from Planes and Trains and Automobiles, one of my favorite movies. John Candy and I, our paths did cross, and I just wanted to, I don't make a big deal out of this, but this is I started off in television, and even before television, doing stand-up comedy, and then I got into writing and performing in comedy sketches. So, of course, inevitably, one's path is going to cross with the SCTV guys, and so my partner at the time, my writing partner Ken Shaw, and I, we'd written a pilot for a variety show, and we got tentative approval, which, by the way, is a mile away from full green light. But we had to move quickly because of timing, as we were doing another series, and we had to get that in there. So we auditioned talent in Toronto, and in comes John Candy and Dan Aykroyd, and they did a sketch for us that was obviously one they had honed extremely well because they were members of the Second City stage show in Toronto, and clearly you could tell this was a very honed, beautifully done, hilariously done. Not one word of dialogue. It was all a choreography, beautifully timed. I won't get into the details of that, but that was we were blown away. We right away, penciled them in because we realized these are two talents that are extraordinary. Danny Aykroyd, we had actually auditioned before when we were doing It's the News on for Global TV, and Danny was amazing. There just wasn't a slot open, unfortunately, but he and his then partner Valerie Bromfield, they had auditioned for us then. But coming back to John Candy, it just struck me as a very, and I met him then a few years later at an awards show, the ACTRA Awards as it was called, and I was a national vice president of ACTRA, and so I was involved in that pretty extensively. And there was John. He came in, and we were backstage with him and the SCTV team, and he was just a kind, down to earth, thoughtful guy. He wasn't on all the time, and he just struck me as by then he had got some great, he SCTV was on the air, and he was already becoming quite a star. It's before he hit the big movie star treatment, but he certainly was a well-known Canadian comic actor. But I just again always was very I've been very sad for 30 years about John Candy because what a decent man. But I'm so glad that this documentary, we did see it the other day, a beautifully done documentary. If you haven't
Beautiful.
seen it, John Candy, I Like Me, please do so.
Yeah, and my friend Sharon Dunn, her son has a picture on social media that,
Jay,
yeah, that
Jay
was,
Sakura.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
any wonder?
yeah.
There goes the phone.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
got to
well,
be one of them.
yeah,
But anyway, their kids ended up in the movie business. Our kids ended up in the movie business, but that's for another podcast.
yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to mention though that we're drinking tea, and this is the best tea. I don't if
Who was
I
that
don't
named after? Yes.
Barry's tea. It's
Yeah, yeah,
Irish tea. I have
yeah.
no deal with them. I'm just saying
No, we do.
it's
We
good
actually
tea.
do like it. It's a
Yeah,
little. It's actually the Irish breakfast they call it, but it's really a little not as sharp as one of my favorites, but English breakfast tea. It's not as sharp as that. It's a softer. It's a great afternoon tea. So I really have enjoyed it. And yes, I have my Halloween mug. I've stolen my daughter's here because it's just we're gradually getting into the spirit of Halloween. Okay, enough about sad. Let's turn to bad. Now, this one is really Canadian political scene. I say bad because it's really where's the strategy behind it? What is the point of this? What is happening in the environment around this taking place? And this was this week. Pierre Poilievre was on a YouTube interview, and he really went after the RCMP for, as he called it, the uh, basically despicable leadership with regard to a number of the scandals, SNC Lavalin and the Aga Khan Christmas vacation. He's still going on about that. And he was hammering away at the RCMP for really not moving forward and resulting in jail time. He actually used the phrase that Justin Trudeau and others should have had jail time. This really, what actually, an RCMP cover up, he actually used the word. So all of this stuff we're not used to north of the border. I emphasize that a little bit because, of course, south of the border, this is the currency of the day. Everybody's a crook. Everybody should be in jail. At least people that aren't my friends or anybody that attacked me, they should be in jail. And basically, you're weaponizing the Department of Justice. Donald Trump weaponizing them to put to criminal charges against his what he perceived to be his enemies. So this is really we're not used to this kind of rhetoric in Canada, and I really truly wonder what in the name of goodness is he even thinking about? Why would he want to have this Donald Trump kind of aura about him? He doesn't need to do that. He stepped on his own news this week. There was Prime Minister Carney really taking the Tory playbook with regard to the whole bail system, a criminal justice system, in which the default is you get automatic bail, and he wants to reverse that into you've got to somehow that it's automatically you don't get bail, and you have to find a way to earn your way out of and have a case that would make it that you could get bail. So that's a very profound suggestion, and rather than sort of jumping on that to say thank you for copying our bill that we had put forward in the House of Commons. Instead, he's now calling all kinds of things about the RCMP, who, by the way, I admire Michelle Duhem, the commissioner, who basically said, come on in and meet us, talk to the people here, and you will see that we're not involved in any of that kind of conduct at all, and we would never be by any political leader of any stripe. So I thought that was pretty strong on his part. Usually, commissioners don't like to get directly involved in the politics of the day, but inevitably you get drawn into these. So that, I would call that bad, meaning that it might have been a clever tactic to get headlines, but bad strategy. It puts him in the completely wrong direction. Here he is a couple months before the conservative leadership, and maybe the right wing end of the conservative party, the hardliners, maybe they love this stuff, but do a vast majority of them love it? I have my doubts. So that's my bad. All right. And that gets us to, we like to end on a positive. So glad. So, what did actually take place this week that you would say glad? Like you were involved this morning in something that I noticed is something you're doing very regularly. Why don't you share what that is?
Well, every Saturday or sometimes through the week, when I meet women who run and own small businesses, I can relate to that. And so, with their permission, I ask them would they like to do a little interview with me, and I put it on my Instagram, Laura Pack 6. So I've met the most extraordinary women who own businesses. A couple of weeks ago, I met a woman who takes old instruments. So let's say if you had an old guitar or an old violin, and you don't want to carry this forever, but she can turn it into jewelry. Very, very clever, very clever. This morning I met a woman who she had a beautiful autumnal, I would say, uh, kiosk at or booth or whatever you want to call it at the farmers market. So almost every week, I meet somebody who's going to do that. Earlier in the week, also, there was a Harvard prof that was in town. And so I interviewed her also, and I put it up on my Instagram. So it's just a little project that I do.
Well, Laura, I mean, you're downplaying that, and that's wonderful. But you're doing all of these as your contribution to uh, women entrepreneurs, and it's great that you're giving them that kind of exposure they otherwise wouldn't have. In fact, I noticed that the officer of the Minister of Small Business actually sent you a very nice note. They have noticed it. They have complimented you on you doing that because it's not a handout; it's a hand up, and when one has been an entrepreneur, as we've had for many years, it is really a nice thing that you're doing there, and you're giving them profile. So I think that's a really positive thing you're doing there. So congratulations on that. The other
Thanks.
the other glad news is really ratcheting up to the world stage, and that is, of course, that we have a settlement of stage one of the painful peace process involving Israel Gaza. And you've got to give credit. It really pains a lot of small L liberals to give credit of any kind to Donald J. Trump, who really was I guess you could say, the overall leader of that initiative, that without his support, that just wouldn't happen. So you've got to give him credit, but like a broken clock, it can be right once or twice a day, and I think it's twice a day, yes. But he doesn't get that much. But it is his, I think, eighth world war or war that he has prevented or solved. No other president has solved a war. So I guess you'd have to wipe out World War I, World War II. Yeah, you'd have to wipe those out. And so
You
it's
are being facetious
of
about.
course, yeah, but but here he was. He had President Zelensky in the Oval Office there, right? And his, no commitment to really doing much more than nudging along Putin and having another meeting with them to glorify him. Uh, he wanted his Tomahawks missiles, and Trump's not committing at all to doing that for Ukraine. And then what does he spend most of his time doing? Whining that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee didn't choose him, and they got some very nice woman from Venezuela, but even she said I deserved it. This kind of stuff. It's very, it's so. How do you put that? Childish. I mean, is there a word to capture that? It's really sad and pathetic. He has no sense of occasion. Rather than sort of building on what he did in Gaza. Instead, he's got a whine that he didn't get a peace prize for it. So this is what people, this is the way it is. And I was glad, in spite of all that, that we got, the hostages home, the Israeli hostages home. Unfortunately, too many dead bodies, but at least most of them, from what we understand, have come home. Um, and now we're moving to the next stage, which will be how do you get in place a solid basis for a true future the Western world has, including Canada and Mark Carney, have supported the idea of giving a chance for the creation of a true Palestinian state that will not involve any member of Hamas, and that will be devoted to peace and rebuilding and a democracy in Gaza, which would be quite something if that were to happen. I think one has to give. My view is let's give it a chance. We've tried everything else, you know. Um, and I know that you could say it's premature because there actually isn't a state there. Well, this is a unique situation. I understand why people might be cynical about that. There is no actual state there, but the Palestinian Authority would be the ones to at least have some credibility to step in there and build the process. It's a long and painful process, but it's better that than just sitting back and really nothing happening for decades more. So I'm one of those ones. Oh, let's give them a chance. If it doesn't, guess what? They should pull the plug on them. If they're bringing Hamas in there, pull the plug on them. I think they know that very clearly, and I believe that this could be a second step that maybe Trump initially doesn't like, but could actually turn out to be the right step. So I think the world has to be a little more glad today than they were at this time last week. So that's it for today. I want to thank everybody. Please follow us. Please subscribe. You'll see the button there. Share it with your friends. And we love to hear from you. You got any questions? We get some great ones. And I think it's important that people, share us. We'd love to track some of the questions and issues that you have. So thank you very much. Thank you, Laura. And we'll see you all next time
Bye
on
bye.
Communicate with Power.
Bye bye.
Bye.